Manchester United downfall on the hands of Antony. Antony the dribbler, Antony the rockstar, Antony the Ballon d'Or nominated, but never got it. No.
24 season, after 21 appearances in just his second year since joining the Premier League, Antony has managed to surprise absolutely everyone and provide a grand total of 0 goals and 0 assists.
What?
Over the last year, there was huge conversation about who the most overrated players in the Premier League were, with the finalists being Darwin Núñez, Mikhailo Mudryk, and Antony. I'll admit it was pretty close between the three, but Darwin at least has had some decent production, and lately, as disappointing as Mudryk has been overall, Antony hands down is clear of both for the most disappointing player in the Premier League. It really makes you wonder, how the hell was Antony valued at such an insane price, as one of the most expensive transfers in Premier League history at an astounding 100 million euros.
Fuck me, Ten Hag!
Just what was Man United management thinking, and why does it look like he completely forgot how to play football? I mean, even if you try to look at some of his best highlights this season, there's only a few that are actually highlights. So before you leave a comment like this trying to defend the guy for his performances, just wait a little bit and hear me out. Because while he is still young and does have some upside, the overwhelming criticism on his game is completely justified. So let's take a look at just how bad Antony has really been. Because to see how this would all unfold, we have to look back at the summer of 2022, when things were seemingly looking hopeful for Man United. They had just brought on board who they thought...
Yes, bro, I myself was so hopeful for Man United to finally recover from that plunging process.
Most revolutionary, sophisticated, and big-brain manager in the history of football, to try and turn things around and to help them bring back their days of glory. So with infinite wisdom, Ten Hag would go on to strongly recommend that the club sign what would be the most expensive player in Eredivisie history. No, not the then 21-year-old Eredivisie Player of the Season playmaker Frankie de Jong at 75 million euros, or the then 20-year-old Dutch Player of the Year defensive savant Matthijs de Ligt at 75 million, but just above them at 100 million euros, the exciting 22-year-old former one...
Actually, like, let's just mention that this piece of shit was not supposed to come into Man United. When Man United go out of options, he just decided to do so because Antony, De Ligt, and Frankie de Jong were actually playing under the management of Ten Hag in Ajax. So the one option left is the worst.
Time Eredivisie Player of the Month and flashy winger Antony. Now, in hindsight, you'll see comments like this, suggesting that United could have signed a winger from the Championship and could still have the same production as Antony for a 90% discount. Back then, it was only a little less crazy, because don't get me wrong, still it was an insanely crazy valuation. But there were times that if you squinted hard enough, you might just have believed you're witnessing the second coming of Neymar. But in all seriousness,
What the heck?
Though I don't issue of him stalling any fluid movement to try and impress or simply do too much with his skill moves was a double-edged sword. Sure, when it was successful, it would be a joy to watch and would definitely make it to the highlight reels. More often than not, it wasn't really all that necessary, nor was it ever as effective as when he tries to actually play intelligently and move the ball with purpose or advance the play. But it's not like his playstyle in Ajax was really all that different from how he's been operating in Man United. He would often do the very same moves, bringing the ball to a complete or near stop before doing a bunch of step overs
Wow.
or trying to feint defenders. However,
Bro actually wasn't so bad at Ajax, but let's see how performances might differ from what it used to be.
It's never really been particularly efficient. He's never really been elite at advancing the ball or beating defenders. If he tries to use his skill moves to beat defenders one-on-one, he'll rarely ever try to utilize his pace, instead opting to slow down the ball or come to a complete stop. While he might get a few oohs and ahs from the crowd, it's an incredibly inefficient style for what he's supposed to be doing as a winger. Mostly I see the skill moves he tries doing and see it as being over the top and unnecessary, especially given the fact that he excels much more with 1-2 give-and-go passing and bringing the ball up without coming to a standstill. Because when we look at his first season at Ajax, he had a pretty okay take-on rate of 58%, which meant he was beating his defenders a little over half of the time, even peaking at a 66% take-on rate in his last year with Ajax. But comparing that to what he's doing now in the Premier League is absolutely abysmal. In his first season with Man United, his take-on success rate dropped to 39%. And now in the 2023-2024 season, his take-on rate is at an all-time low 32.6%, meaning that his success of taking on a defender is even less than 1/3 of the time. That puts him in the bottom percentile of wingers in the Premier League in terms of beating players off the dribble. And I guess it's fair to say that the quality of defense he was up against in the Eredivisie were just not as tough as they are in the Premier League, both in skill and physicality. And yet he hasn't really made any constructive change to his style of play, despite the obvious signs that it's not working out so well. Instead of being more active with give and goes, or perhaps playing more intelligently to beat his defender, we know all too well that he does things like this.
Actually, how can a guy goes from perfect to minus?
Premier League defenders are just not falling for the stationary skill moves, either deciding to back off and give him some space, or bringing two defenders over to try to strip the ball away from him, as they know that he's going to be reluctant to pass the ball. Honestly, this really all boils down to Antony's incredibly poor decision-making, especially throughout this past year. And this goes hand in hand with another part of his game he's severely lacking in: the use of his weaker foot. If you take a look at the latest FIFA games, you'd see that they actually gave this man a 3-star weak foot. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because when you watch him, it becomes clear very quickly that Antony pretty much refuses to use his right foot. And maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal if he was a striker, but considering the fact that he plays on the right wing actually handicaps his potential. He wastes time by forcing himself to move
What
the
the
ball
heck?
onto his dominant foot. And so far, all 4 of his Premier League goals has come from his left foot alone. But when making a pass or going for goal, letting defenders or keepers have that extra moment to adjust just because he's taking even a half second longer to execute by moving the ball to his left foot could make an incredibly huge difference. At least if not for shooting the ball. You should be able to be confident in both feet for dribbling and passing, especially if you're a professional, much less a Premier League player. And yes, I know there are some who only really use one foot, with one player especially famous for basically doing everything off of one foot and yet still able to absolutely destroy defenders. And of course, I'm talking about Arjen Robben. But there are some copers who legitimately believe that Antony plays like Robben, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Robben could efficiently and effortlessly beat defenders, something that Antony really needs to work on. And even United legend Paul Scholes criticized Antony, basically calling him a one-trick pony and saying he doesn't play intelligently as a winger, whether it be running behind or cutting into open spaces to receive the ball. Instead, either just passing it back to the fullback and wasting momentum.
Bro, it's getting too much. Oh, look at this, bro.
Here are some reasons why Antony is the GOAT. Antony is only 3 goals away from scoring a hat trick in every match he plays. He is just 8 Ballon d'Or awards away from Messi. Antony has one of the best skill moves of all time. He has won the same number of World Cups as Ronaldo. Antony has scored more goals this year than Maradona, Pelé, Ronaldo Nazario, and Zidane combined. Simply GOAT things. Here are some reasons why Antony is the GOAT.
What the fuck, bro? Antony just got smashed in a simple word in Premier League. Now in Betis, I don't know how the fuck he gonna manage to survive his lost career.